Hello, Andrew.
Hi.
How are you today?
Pretty good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, not coughing at the moment, so.
Okay, that's good. Say something?
Something. I should get water.
Okay.
We'll just pretend I've been sitting in this chair. So I'm Andrew. I'm from Shanghai, but I'm an American citizen who was born here, and I sort of have grown up in between the two places of, well, different cities in China and in the States. Yeah. I think it's really hard to say because in China I went to a lot of international schools, and sort of I felt really a sense of belonging there, right? Because all the kids in international schools tend to have similar backgrounds where maybe their parents studied abroad and then came back to China and then but wanted their kids to get an American or British education. But for me, it felt more noticeable after coming here because I don't think there's necessarily a culture shock because I've always considered myself to be somewhat American and I'm pretty like acclimated to how things are here. But it's this like weird sense of, I think they're just small cultural differences here and there that still sort of get you. And I think often on like political issues, it can get a little bit difficult to think about like certain topics, particularly relating to, things happening in China. Like on one hand, both my parents, I mean, they're also US citizens, but they grew up in China and so their political views might be more lean that way a little bit more, whereas for me, I've been growing up in a very Western education that's taught a lot of political ideals that are more sort of liberal or more like democracy focused, right? And so I myself sometimes struggle when I think about a lot of these issues, but also when I hear conversations here, at university or at my high school, also in the States, where people who might not have been to China or have lived in China talk about certain political situations. So it can be interesting. Yeah, but that's sort of abstractly put. Not a major one. I mean, I do argue with my parents sometimes at the dinner table, like some of you might also, but yeah, I think it is because like if we are to simplify things into a spectrum of like being more like pro like official Chinese view and official like US view, right? Like I'm more like US leaning than they are, or I have a more westernized education than they have. So a lot of my political thinking is slightly different in that regard. We do get along pretty well, and it tends to just be like a dinner table argument. But yeah, that's sort of how it is.
Do you do CA?
Oh, I did OA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How was that? That was fun, right?
Yeah, we got to
Virtually.
climb Mount Everest on
Okay.
the internet.
Nice. So I'm gonna start with a tame one.
Okay.
So what was the happiest moment of your life?
Why does this feel like we're playing hot seat? I think probably the most difficult part of my life so far, and I think I've lived a very privileged life growing up. So I think it was last year. I mean, everyone's been going through the pandemic and we all can have our own anecdotes and cliches. I think interestingly for me it was not fall semester because fall was just like this weird, everything's online, and as a freshman coming into a fall term that's online, you sort of, it feels like a continuation of high school, because last semester of high school was also online. But spring when I got to school, I ended up in a pretty small single in my rest college, and I mean the people in my C group were pretty friendly, but I wasn't like super close to them or anything. And I think, I don't know how, but various things just spiraled that like I ended up feeling very isolated a lot of the time. I mean, I think it started off like not getting sleep, getting behind on work, all the things everyone goes through, right? And I think my mental health really took a big plunge. I think very much because I've realized through this pandemic, I'm somebody who really finds a lot of joy in being around other people. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. But it's just like being around the energy of other people is such like this invigorating thing that if like I can go about it for a bit, especially after being conditioned to it over this time. But I had a period in spring where I like ended up not going to a lot of classes and not eating for like quite a couple days in a row. So that made things a lot more difficult, right? And also that like, I mean, I'd sort of there's also a situation with the pandemic that I'm a U.S. citizen, but my family lives in China. But even in the pandemic, I couldn't go back because I have a visitor visa and not a residence permit. So I sort of had to move into college like on my own, with like a driver that my like mom asked who was like local and stuff. But I think there wasn't this like added layer of security because I mean, even through high school, they always are really far away. But I think sometimes when you really struggle, um, you know, it's when you want to turn more to family to support because they're always there for you. So yeah, it was, yeah, what was I talking about? Something about struggling during the pandemic, which is, yeah, I think so. So being away from home, missing home a bit, feeling a bit socially, like, I mean, I met some really great people here. I mean, there's so many amazing people on campus, but um, even if you, I think I learned in high school that even if you get to know lots of people, that you can still feel very distant from a lot of them, especially just because, I mean, we had all these rules that were like, everyone had to distance. So yeah, that's sort of one of the hardest periods of my life. I think just getting through every day, right, and making sure to try to wake up to go eat food and just try to get through things, even though you felt like what you were doing might not matter that much or you didn't care about it as much anymore, was a real struggle. Yeah, I think everyone is still sort of recovering.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and I mean, if we can say we're in the process of recovering, but I mean we're still dealing with a lot of like patterns or dilemmas we might have gotten ourselves into in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing process. It's pretty easy to answer. I think this is a very standard one, but as so both my grandpas have passed, but I was only like old enough to remember one of them. That was my grandpa on my mom's side, and he is actually like, or my mom's stepfather. But growing up, my parents always like didn't really talk to me about that, and just because they wanted me to see him as just my biological grandfather, right? But I think yeah, it's just it was really the first time in my life that like I went through like losing a close one, a loved one that I really really knew, and it happened when I was, I think, like 13 or something like that. But at the time we lived in Beijing, and both sides of my family are originally from Shanghai. So I remember having these, like, some summers I would go to Shanghai to visit my grandparents, and they would, like, my grandpa specifically would take me around on scooters, and like we would go buy like street food and stuff. So I had a lot of vivid memories, and I remember when he passed away, I mean, I completely lost it, right? Like people who have like grieve for a loved one too.
Yeah.
But I remember most vividly just thinking about how like the person in my memory who like brought me all those like happy things and like all these like small fragments of memories, like his scooter or like the way he opens the door or seeing how he like cooks something, or right the way he put like Maggie sauce, which is like on fried eggs. And that's something that like yeah, so there was lots of like I couldn't really process how like I would never be able to experience those same things again in the same way. I also remember when he passed away, I think like a couple days before, he bought me like a cake or something, because like we knew because he passed away to cancer, but we knew he'd been like pretty sick for quite a while, but it wasn't until like he was really sick like the last few days that we flew over to Shanghai, because we didn't live there at the time. And yeah, I remember, so he bought me a cake, and then there was like that piece of cake sitting in my fridge after he passed away, and then I couldn't bear to like eat it. Yeah. I also remember like crying a lot. I was like crying all at the hospital, and then we went to eat like a really late dinner, and then I cried throughout the dinner, and I cried on the way home, and I cried the next day too. So I mean, it's a fairly universal experience, but it's for me, that's probably was like viscerally the saddest moment of my life so far. Oh, I remember. So this is back before, you know, boba was all the rage. I was still like, I mean, it was sort of catching on in China, like that's quite a lot of years ago. But I really like to drink boba, right? And then so my grandpa bought me like tapioca pearls, so we could make them at home.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sweet. Did they taste good?
They did taste good. Yeah. I think
Sorry.
I think up until that point, I'd always thought like, I don't know why, I thought they were like made of like some weird rubber or something.
Rubber?
Yeah.
Like
'Cause they're
edible rubber?
like some edible rubber, because they're like chewy, but they're like
yeah.
bouncy, and I'm like, that's not like normal food. And then he bought me a packet, and I was like, oh, that's how they work. So
Wait, what are they made of?
I think it's
Like
some plant, like the root
What?
of some plant,
Some
tapioca
plant?
plant.
Wait, tapioca is a plant?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
I think it's a plant. I'm like 95% certain. But
Wow, you learn something new every day.
your confusion is confusing me, so I'm now more
I'm gonna search it up right now.
I don't know. And he was like, thank you for coming in today. No problem. Okay, that's about all I have for today. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
No, like
you're-
add your own improv. You like thanks guys. or
Why am I'm not talking to an audience. I'm
Yeah,
talking
you
to
are.
you.
Oh, you are talking to me.
Yeah. And cut.